brief you on the High Commissioner's remarks, briefed the Council today again. He stated unequivocally that we might be reaching a moment of reckoning in the region as far as the external dimension is concerned, especially with regard to your earlier question over the historical evolution over the last 2 years now. I think it is useful to recall that in April 2012, UNHCR had a total of 33,000 Syrian refugees on our books in the region. As of yesterday, we had registered or given out registration documents to some 336,000 refugees, or nearly a 30 times increase over the period of 10 months ago. In fact, since early January, some 40,000 Syrians have fled every week into the neighboring countries. Roughly speaking, without going into the details, we could be talking now about 400,000 refugees in both Lebanon and in Jordan. We are approaching 300,000 in Turkey, and over 100,000 have already made their way to Iraq, and there are thousands of others who have made their way further beyond into Europe and North Africa. One particular point that the High Commissioner was also quick to underline is that we should not forget in this equation the situation of Palestinians who have been hosted by Syria for many years, as you know, and of whom more than 30,000 have made their way now into neighboring Lebanon. And so it is vital that UNRWA receives the essential support to stabilize the situation, not only among the population within Syria, but also without. And finally, a point to reiterate what Madam Amos already said: the funding situation is a grim one. We have heard all the pledges. We now need to see that those pledges are honored. The High Commissioner is operating on a shoestring compared to the needs that are in the region. 20% of the appeal has so far been funded, as you heard from Madam Amos, and it is really vital that the funding is now stepped up to the needs on the ground so that we can do what is required. Thank you.
I take some questions. The flow of refugees, I asked about this earlier. What a paradox is that the poorer countries in the region, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, are bearing the brunt of this crisis, indeed, whereas the richer ones are averting any involvement or taking on their board, although they are financing the war itself, as so many reports show. What does that tell? And are you putting any pressure on these rich countries who are financing the war but refraining from financing the refugees?
You will understand enough about our mandate that you will understand that UNHCR is a strictly humanitarian organization, so we deal with the fallout of a political quagmire. That is quite clear. You are correct to say that the brunt of the burden is currently borne by the neighboring countries. It's also a question of geography. We can only applaud both the governments and the people of the neighboring countries for opening their doors. Don't forget that most of the refugees in the region, in fact, are not housed in camps, even though camps seem to attract most of the media attention, but the vast majority of them, in fact, live in homes, houses of friends, neighbors, people who really help out wherever they can, even though they may not be in a particularly well-off position themselves. Clearly, we may have reached a threshold there with the numbers that have reached Lebanon. It may well be necessary to look at other means or measures to accommodate the vast majority of refugees, but we still hope that the policy, the open door policy, will be maintained throughout the region and that the borders indeed will remain open. Thank you.
Would you please give us some figures about the registered refugees in Lebanon, and what is the estimate of the unregistered ones, and also about the Palestinians who fled Syria into Lebanon? Do you have any numbers, and why the Lebanese government is hesitant or reluctant building camps for the Syrian refugees?
You may get all those details from a UNHCR web portal where all the detailed figures are updated on a daily basis. I said earlier there are currently 315,000 registered refugees in Lebanon, but the true figure may well be approaching 400,000 to give you a grosso modo figure. The same is true for neighboring Jordan, where the number of people are arriving on a daily basis far outpace the machinery, and I think we can really say it is now a machinery of registering refugees as soon as possible upon arrival, because obviously assistance is a function of them being registered so that you know to whom the assistance will go out. The situation on the borders on a nightly basis is really requiring extraordinary efforts by all concerned, including UNHCR's partners and of course the government. Thank you. Yes.
Ask about Jordan. There was a lot of talk about that Zatari camp being near, going well over capacity. What's the progress of building another camp? And also, there had been some comments by the Jordanian authorities of at some point trying to close the border. What's been your discussions of UNHCR with the Jordanians on that topic?
I must say that the discussions with the Jordanians, both here and in situ, have been extremely constructive, given the overwhelming number of people arriving on a daily and nightly basis. It is truly extraordinary that we are talking about 400,000 people now who have been given shelter and security within Jordan. Now, given the limitations in urban environments, it is clear that extraordinary measures had to come into play as well. Jordan is now building an additional 2 camps with additional capacity, but we all know if at the current pace of arrivals, if that continues, that capacity will be reached very shortly, so that we have to rethink again what can be done to accommodate the vast majority of arrivals, and as Valerie rightly said, the vast majority being women and children with special needs that have to be taken care of. Can I have one from you? Any questions?